3, 2, 1, ignition.
Hey everybody, this is Kevin, and welcome to the first in a new build series on my YouTube channel. And this is going to be the build of a Gemini Titan rocket, the type that was used by NASA to send two-man teams into space to orbit the Earth and to conduct spacewalks and other space exploration in preparation for our eventual trip to the moon. Now, the purpose of this build is in response to Max from Max's Models, where we're doing another community build, and this time we're doing a Cold War era missile. Now, I'm sure there's plenty to go out and choose from if you want to buy a new one from the store. However, I already had this kit in my stash. You may remember when I went to the IPMS show here in Las Vegas last month, I purchased this kit right here, this AMT Pro Shop Man in Space rocket collection. And this one kit comes with 5 actual rockets in it. It comes with the Mercury Redstone, which was a one-man capsule. Then we had the Atlas, which was another one-man capsule, same Mercury capsule, but on a larger rocket, which was able to actually put it into orbit. The Redstone was only able to get it up and then back down suborbital. But the Atlas had enough propulsion to get it into a constant orbit around the Earth. Then when NASA went up and moved up into the larger capsule, the Gemini capsule, which was a two-man capsule, they needed yet again a stronger rocket, so they went with the Titan rocket, which was designed as a intercontinental ballistic missile, or ICBM, but it was strong enough to get the larger two-man capsule into orbit. And then from there, we got into the Apollo era, which was the three-man capsules, starting with the Saturn 1B, and then eventually the most famous of them all, the Saturn V, which is what eventually got us to the moon. So you can see here in this little picture, there's all 5 rockets. This is a 1/200 scale. For reference, you can see how far we came when we jumped from the little single-man Mercury capsule on a Redstone all the way to the giant Saturn V, pushing the 3-man Apollo capsule. And those are all to scale. And so what I'm doing in this build is I decided to open this box up and start the Gemini Titan, which is the third one here right in the middle, because that rocket, the Titan rocket, was beyond the use of NASA, was kept as a Cold War weapon to defend and or retaliate or whatever we needed to do during the Cold War. In fact, if you are ever so inclined to visit Arizona, I encourage you to go to Green Valley, Arizona, where the Titan Missile Museum is located. I've been there, and it's a hidden underground silo, which is one of dozens that we had across the country. But this one was turned into a museum, and there's still it's a deactivated, non-fueled, not ready to go. But there is a Titan stored in the silo as if it were ready to go for launch. And if you go and take the tour, they take you down into the silo. You see the rocket up close. You travel up and down the elevator to see all the different levels. It's quite fascinating. And from the ground level, you don't see anything except the visitor center now. But back in those days, it was completely hidden out of sight. No one knew it was there. But if they ever needed it, they'd slide the door open and out would come the Titan missile. So, because I already had this on hand and the missile is similar enough, I'm going to build this Titan. I've already taken the parts out of the box and bagged them, mainly because all the parts had fallen off the tree in the box, and I kind of had to go through them and categorize all the different kits to make sure I had all the pieces. But I did find all the parts for the Titan, so I went in and bagged them. But it was a dual purpose. This missile was used to, again, take the Gemini capsule into orbit, as well as to be used as a Cold War weapon defense system. So it's close enough. I'm going to build it with the Gemini capsule on it in place of what they would have put a nuclear warhead on it during the Cold War era. But it's close enough for me. I don't think Max would mind that I'm doing the Gemini Titan as opposed to just a Titan Cold War missile. What I do is, before I build any kit, is I go online and see if I can find the manual online so I can print it up and use it and preserve the original, to keep it from stains, glues, paints, whatever. So I use a copy. A very simple build that's literally it. Let me read the little history here on the Gemini Titan before we begin. It says the powerful Titan II was selected as the launch vehicle to boost the Gemini 2-man spacecraft into orbit. It was first used successfully in the unmanned flight of Gemini on April 8, 1964. It was chosen for the Gemini mission because of its payload capability and, importantly, because its propellants are non-explosive, a feature permitting use of an ejection seat escape system instead of the rocket escape tower of Mercury. All engines operate on a mixture in which the fuel is a blend of unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine, referred to as UDMH, and hydrazine, and the oxidizer is nitrogen tetroxide. The mixture is hypergolic, which means that when the fuel and oxidizer are brought together, the combination ignites spontaneously without need for an ignition system. The propellants can also be stored for some time in Titan's fuel tanks. As a result, the launch vehicle can be readied for use on comparatively short notice and need not be drained of fuel if a launch is postponed. Titan II has a 430,000-pound thrust first stage and a 100,000-pound thrust second stage. It is 90 feet high, less the payload, and 10 feet in diameter at the base. So again, as the little history tells us, the fuel can be set in the tanks for quite some time and ready to go at a moment's notice, which made it perfect for the Cold War. If we needed to retaliate, we didn't have to wait for the fuel and all that. It was ready to go at a moment's notice. So perfect choice for the Cold War era. That being said, let's go ahead and, I was going to say do an unboxing, but let's do an unbagging because that's what I've got it down to. Again, very, very few parts, tiny parts though, so we do need to be careful and not lose anything. This is simply a little stand. Once I get it built, then it'll be able to hold the rocket. So let me just set that off to the side. Pretty simple. This is our main stage right here. Then you've got the second stage body right here, which will mount something kind of like that. And then you've got the adapters that taper down to the diameter of the capsule itself, which is this little guy here. So that's the way it's going to kind of look in the end. Again, very simple build. Shouldn't take me long to glue it up together. I think the hardest part of this build is going to be the painting, actually, because once I get it built up and sanded and smooth and primed, then there is a lot of intricate detail on the painting. Now the decals, this has all the decals for all the 5 rockets, but I'm probably only going to need 1 or 2 of these United States stickers and possibly a little United States here that goes on the capsule. I'm not sure if those are for the Mercuries only or not. We'll have to see. But I'll play that by ear because I have seen Gemini capsules with the United States on it. There's only 2 here, and the kit comes with 2 Mercuries and 1 Gemini. So I'm not quite sure how we'll handle that. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. I'm going to do some gluing up, some preliminary building, and I'll show you what we got. Okay, a few preliminary things I want to do before I actually glue the first stage together is I want to install this bulkhead, which fits right into this little groove right here. Half of it glues on this stage and the other half will glue on the other side. But the thing is, this needs to be painted, and the inside of this needs to be painted, and it's going to be a lot easier to do that now than after I glue the 2 halves together. So what I want to do is, first of all, there's a little bit of a nub I want to just sand off so it fits a little more flush. That's part of the piece that when I cut it off the tree, although I didn't cut it off, it fell off in its years of justling and bouncing around. But anyway, that'll make things fit a lot better. And let me go ahead and do the other one. Since I'm going to be, this one's going to go on the other stage, but since I got the paint out, I might as well go ahead and paint it up as well at the same time. Okay, now what I'm going to do to hold the part is the inside of the bulkhead is never going to be seen by human eyes again. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue a toothpick to the inside of each piece. And I've got a little bottle of kicker here. That'll help hold it. And then that gives me something to hold it while I paint it. And it'll allow it to set somewhere while it dries as well. So that's one. Let me get the other one glued up on another toothpick. And again, once this is done, then I can simply break the toothpick off. But seeing as though this will never be seen by human eyes again, it's not an issue. Okay, so let me set the glue aside and the kicker. And I've got some gray paint that I'm going to use to paint the inside of the stage one with, and I've actually got some copper. Although it's more of a rustic color, the copper I think will suffice for the purposes of making it look a little scale. Okay, so let me grab a paintbrush. Okay, let me grab two because I'm going to need the silver here in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to grab the first bulkhead and just simply well, that looks really good. I think that's going to be a nice effect. Because the stages are not to be glued together once you get them built up, so you can separate them and show how the rocket would separate into different stages during the launch phase of the flight. So when you remove a stage, you're going to see the exposed bulkheads on the inside. So I think that's looking really sharp, actually. Simply take a clothespin and that'll help hold the part. That actually looks really sharp with this copper color. You might be getting some glare on the camera with the light, but believe me, in person, this looks stunning. Just a light coat. There. Absolutely stunning. So now, unfortunately, I was going to say I couldn't find my other clothespin, but I found it. So there's the other part right there, and now we'll get into painting the stage. Okay, now that I've got the bulkheads set aside drying, I'm going to go ahead and use some Testor's gray paint and paint the inside of the stage 1 body, which is where the bulkhead is going to fit into. So I want to get that painted before I actually glue them together. So let's go ahead and get these painted up. Again, nothing too elaborate, just very simple. Might have gotten a little too much paint on this, but that's okay. I'll spread some of it over into the other side. Okay. And it doesn't take a whole lot, way less than what I actually put on it. But that's okay. I'll probably end up here in a second. I'm going to go back and clean up some of the paint on that first half because that is right where my glue joint's going to be. And I don't want the paint to affect the glue. Not that there's going to be a lot of stress on this vehicle, because it's just going to be a static model, but I don't want it separating over time either, so. Okay. I don't think I did the top on this one. Just a very light coat right here. And let me grab a Q-tip and spray it down a little bit with some alcohol and just kind of wipe. There. Just to help with the adhesion. There we go. So now I'm gonna let these parts dry. Once that paint dries, I'll go ahead and glue one of the bulkheads in, and then I'm gonna glue the two halves together. Okay, so the next thing I want to work on is the engines, the two main engines on stage 1, and they're going to plug into this base plate here that's eventually going to glue into the bottom of stage 1. But what I want to go ahead and do is build it up now, and then I'll spray paint it all together, and then I'll glue it onto the base. That way I don't have to mask off the stage when I decide to paint this. So I'm going to do it all together. So first thing I need to do is get the orientation right. These two little tabs stick out. I'm going to orientate them this way. And then the engine mount right here is going to plug in perpendicular to those two tabs, like so. Okay. And then these two braces, I want to make sure I get them in the right orientation. Oh, okay, I see how they go in, and okay, they plug into the little slots that are on the base of the engine. Okay, that's clever. Okay, so let me go ahead and, before I clamp it down too tight, let me get these at this other side in. Okay, now there. Okay, that looks good. I need this piece. I don't know if you can see it. There's a little bit of a gap right here. So these two engines need to go further in, but they can't because the post is stopping. So I'm going to cut a little bit off this post so it'll slide in an extra 30/2 of an inch. Now it's going to be tight to pull it apart, or not too tight. Okay, yeah, I'm going to take off a little bit of the bottom here so it'll close a lot easier on me. There we go. Let me just kind of taper this a little bit so it goes in easier. Okay. Okay, let me start that, and then I'll get these plugged in. Finicky. Tell you what I'll do. Let me put these in first. I'm going to glue them in. So that'll help hold them and make my life a whole lot easier. Okay, now I can set the main engine in. Yeah, see, that closes that gap up a lot nicer. I don't know if you can see it. The gap is pretty much closed. Still a little bit of an air gap, but that I attribute that just to the plastic not forming 100%. Now let me just fuse those together with some cement. All right, so there we have that. And we've got the two little engine bells here that go on the end of the nozzles, or the engines. And like so. And it softens the plastic when you apply the cement, and sometimes they can wobble around a little bit. So as it hardens, then I'll go and straighten up the engine nozzles just to make sure they're facing somewhat the right direction. This is all just line of sight. And if they come out crooked, I'll just attribute it to saying, well, the engines are gimbaling for directional control, so it's an action shot. All right, so I'll set that aside to dry. So all these different components will be painted different colors. That's why it was important that I get them built up and not glued together. That way I can spray them separately. Now I can go ahead and glue the base onto the capsule also. There's a little bit of a flashing I need to sand off. So they'll mate a little bit more flush. This one I'm going to actually clean up a little bit with a knife. Okay. Perfect. And perfect. There we go. Oh, that's going to fit nice. And then I'll sand any extra off after the glue dries. Perfect. All right, so we'll set the capsule aside, let that dry. So really all we have left are the adapter pieces, and these do not get cemented together, I don't believe. I believe this one ends up gluing to the base of the capsule. And this gets glued to stage 2, but these two pieces will not glue together. That way you can separate the parts. So we'll just set those aside for now. So I'm going to let these items dry up a little bit. Let me make sure everything's holding straight. The two nozzles are facing the right angles. They look good. And the stage 2 engine should be dry by now. And it's set properly. Looks good. Okay. Looks like stage 1's holding well. And stage 2 is holding well. Now, stage 2, I'm going to glue, or I already did. I wanted to glue these together before I paint the silver inside, only because I'm going to be able to access it with it closed, so that's not going to be an issue. So, all right. So I may do that off camera, but I will let this go for now. We will wrap up the build in hopefully no more than 3 videos. The next video should be more gluing together, but I also want to have some painting as well. And of course, the final detailing work with the decals will probably finish up video 3. So my goal is to wrap this up in 3 videos at the most. So thanks for watching, and hope to see you guys on the next episode.